Welcome to the Motherhood Alliance podcast, the podcast dedicated to empowering moms and families on their health and wellness journey. I'm Brittany Suttner.
And I'm Andrea Rinkus. Together, we're here to explore holistic approaches that go beyond conventional medicine.
Each week, we dive into topics that matter most to you. Everything from nutrition and mental health to alternative therapies and natural living.
And whether you're a new mom navigating the early stages of parenthood or a seasoned pro looking for new ways to support your family's well-being, you're in the right place.
Even better, all of our guests are local small business owners who you can actually talk to and work with. You can learn more about today's guest and connect with hundreds of other health and wellness professionals through our informative and easy-to-use directory at motherhoodalliance.com.
Before we get started, keep in mind that this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not a substitute for personal healthcare advice. Please consult your healthcare provider before making any changes based on the podcast content.
Thank you for joining us on this journey. Are you ready to help your family thrive? Let's get started. Hi, we are Britt and Drea from motherhoodalliance.com, and we are excited to welcome you to a 4-episode series with Dr. Felicia Houk, the owner of Shifting Tides Chiropractic in Menasha, Wisconsin. Dr. Felicia is a neurologically based chiropractor who specializes in pregnancy, infant and pediatric care, and educating her patients about how stress impacts the way our brains process and function. Her clinic is also a certified Perfect Storm pediatric office that helps children calm their brains and better process the world around them. When she's not serving patients in the office or hosting a local lunch and learn, you can find her traveling, enjoying the outdoors, staying active, and building a life rooted in self-sustainability. Help us welcome her to the podcast.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Motherhood Alliance podcast. We are super excited to welcome Dr. Felicia into our studio today. We always start with a fun fact, Dr. Felicia. So I hear that you are a 4th-generation chiropractor. That's pretty special.
Yeah, it's a legacy for sure. But it also, I think, helps me to see what has happened in the history of healthcare and medicine, how things have changed, how things have evolved, and even how we're getting back to some of the original roots of healthcare. So,
have you talked to, your parents, your grandparents, like the people who have been chiropractors, like you've learned that history and you've been able to talk about it?
Yes, and knowing their stories as well is really, really neat. So my aunt was actually the chiropractor before me, and then it was my grandpa, and then it was both my great-grandpa and great-grandma. So my great-grandma was a doctor as well, which is kind of unheard of for like the early 1900s. But that story, if you want me to go into it briefly, my great-grandparents were kind of high society people, but chiropractic back in the day was new, and it was also unusual and kind of taboo, if you will.
Yeah.
And so my great-grandpa had been having digestive issues majorly, like to a point where he was losing massive amounts of weight, and he was over 6 foot. So he was getting down to like very unhealthy weights. And at the time, medicine couldn't figure it out. They did all kinds of scopes and whatever else, they did at the time. And they just said it was in his head. They just said,
gosh,
you're crazy. It's in your head. Which now we come to know and learn that it probably was part of his brain and in his head, right? Because that's what processes are being. But they finally got so desperate enough that they went to the chiropractor down the road, the taboo thing, and he had a complete 180 in his health. And so he had no more digestive issues, and they literally packed up and went down to Davenport, Iowa to learn about chiropractic.
Wow.
So then they both became chiropractors.
That's amazing.
It was fun. It's a really actually cool story, and it has nothing to do with pain. It has everything to do with body function.
Did they start it with the name Shifting Tides Chiropractic, or what was the original name?
They did not. It was my last name, Houk. So it was Houk Chiropractic, and then Houk Chiropractic Clinics, and Houk Chiropractic, and all these sorts of things. But I knew that as a lady, I would probably be changing my last name when I got married. So I wanted it to be more on our mission or vision based and less on my actual last name.
Sure.
So we just shifted the name.
Awesome. And then how long have you been running Shifting Tides?
It's been a little over 8 years.
Yeah. Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Love it.
All right. So let's kind of get into, I guess one question I had, I think that I want to start with this is you talk about being a neurologically based chiropractor. And in my perspective, which I'm not a chiropractor, I love health. I love advocating for wellness and all that stuff. But I always think of chiropractors, they should be neurologically based, right? Like it feels like they should be. But when you differentiate that, what do you mean by that instead of traditionally based, I guess? And what does that mean?
So most traditional chiropractic has been kind of overtaken or overruled by insurance. So, kind of the 80s, 90s, insurance accepted chiropractic, and it was actually really a good time for insurance, like the 80s were, because they allowed chiropractic care for almost any ailment, which was really neat. And then as soon as they got chiropractors on board, they then diminished what chiropractors could bill for. And so now the only thing that you can bill for is pain and pain-based, adjustments. And so traditional chiropractic is pain-based. It is chasing pain a lot of times, or chasing symptoms, where what we do is looking at the brain, looking at the entire system of the body, because we're all connected. It's not just parts and pieces and chunks. And we don't want to chase pain because pain is the alarm.
Got it. So to take that one step further, because you accept insurance in your office, right? But you're now neurologically based. So how are you able to kind of straddle that line of still being able to help people come in for wellness care and still use their insurance?
Yep. So there's two different things that you can do, and this really will break it down. When someone has an active problem, we can utilize insurance, but the way that we're billing isn't based on pain. It's based on a functional loss.
Okay.
So we'll look at something and say, hey, you're not sleeping a deep, full 8 hours. Maybe you're only getting 4. So let's measure that and look at getting you to 5 or 6 or 7, and then eventually 8. So we're looking at functional loss. And that's the way that we're able to bill, as opposed to just chasing a pain symptom.
It's so frustrating, the game you have to play with insurance.
And just like words and how you do. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah. I just was curious because, sometimes it's how you say things or how you try to make yourself a little different. And that's good. I'm glad you say that. It was interesting. So,
well, we are going to be starting this episode, this first one out of 4. So make sure you guys stay tuned for the other episodes that are coming after this. But this first one, we are kind of focused on that traditional pain and inflammation and stress and how this all works within the body. So, but I want to start with, since you're a neurologically based chiropractor, for those of you who have not been thinking about the human body since taking biology in high school, Dr. Felicia, can you kind of give us a run through of how the nervous system actually works?
Sure. So I'll just start by saying that your brain is your major operating center. So if you think about like some big, space center with a ton of different buttons and all that sort of thing, that's what your brain is for your body. So your brain is literally what allows you to interact with the world around you, and it's what allows you to respond to the world. And that's either appropriate response or maybe an inappropriate response, depending on how the brain sees it, perceives it, and is overloaded.
So then how does that transfer into our fingers moving and the feeling of pain in different areas and how it extends into the entire body?
Yeah. So most people know that you've got bones in your back, but the reality is that the bones are there to protect your spinal cord, which is basically like a message system highway between the brain and the rest of the body. So basically what happens is your nerves will give some kind of a sensation signal or it gets information from the outside world. Those nerves will send that message through the spinal cord up to the brain. So, that's hot, right? And it's going to send that information to the brain. And then the brain in return is going to respond by sending a message through the cord to the nerves with a response to take your hand off the stove. Right. So it's kind of it's just the communication centers between the brain.
It's amazing how fast that goes too.
Yeah.
So fast.
And sensitive.
Yeah.
how is it that one person could smash their finger with a hammer and have a different type of response compared to somebody else? So a similar type of injury, and different people can have very different responses to pain levels. How does that work?
So a lot of it has to do with how the brain is already perceiving the world. Okay, so if you're somebody that isn't hanging on to a ton of stress and you're seeing the world as like safe and I'm thriving and things are good and I'm healing and, that kind of a perspective, you're typically going to have a higher pain tolerance. Or even like somebody that has maybe built grit where they're like, you know what, I know pain doesn't kill me, but it's an alarm. It's telling me something. So I'm not going to let it like consume me or overwhelm me, but I'm going to listen to it and understand what it means. So it really is like how your brain is interpreting the information based on your past experiences.
And perspectives.
Yeah.
That's really interesting because I feel like, you look at like monks or, like they do a lot to build resilience in pain and anything else. So that's really interesting that you can do that too.
Yeah.
Well, and you mentioned it also depends on what else is going on in your life. So stress-based probably, right? Stress is in everyone's life in some way, shape, or form, and it rises and falls depending on our circumstances. And some people have chronic stress and some people have experiential stress. How does stress really impact our nervous system? Does stress cause inflammation inside of our bodies? Like, help us unpack how this is all related.
Like, what does stress do?
Yeah.
So when the body perceives something as threatening or like, life altering, if you will, turns on a part of the nervous system that's called the sympathetics, but is commonly referred to as the fight and flight mode. And you guys have probably heard of that. Yeah. So fight and flight mode redirects the body's use of energy, so that the body's just literally trying to fight for our lives, flee for our lives, hide so that we can survive. So it's a very survival mode, and it really is designed for back when we lived in the wilderness, and it was used, for the right purpose back then to be able to get away from a bear or get away from a lion or whatever it might be. But that in today's world translates a little bit different because our brain is still operating in the same like natural or sort of primal setting that, hey, there's things that want to eat us. But the reality is that there are not really things that want to eat us. And so these commonplace things that we've created as a society that kind of bog us down, whether it's like physical stressors, chemical stressors, emotional stressors. If we were living in the wilderness, we would never have to worry about like chemical toxins. Those are human produced or human made, right? We'd never have to worry about like time and running late. Expectation, there's all these things that we've developed as a society, right? There are no chairs in nature, right? There's no phones in nature. So all of those things are putting us in unnatural positions that create stress and bog down the body. Did I answer the question?
Yeah, for the most part. I think that's a really great explanation. But can you loop in the inflammation part? Because inflammation is such a buzzword nowadays. And so how does that relate to the nervous system itself? Or is that really, is inflammation more so swelling in the body that's caused from maybe consuming foods that are not good for us? Is it unrelated or related to the nervous system?
Yeah, so the inflammatory response is a protective response. And so if you think about it, whether it is a chemical that we're eating, something that we're consuming, the body is going to use inflammation to actually protect. So it basically tries to like hole off that chemical and put it in like a fluid-filled pouch or pocket. So think about like a blister, right? It's kind of a similar concept. It builds a fluid-filled pocket to protect the skin from actually being abrased off, or like a cyst, right? So if you have a cyst around a tendon, it's because you've overused it and overworked it. So it puts a fluid-filled pocket there to protect the tendon because otherwise it would rub down and you'd tear, right? So inflammation is basically the same thing. So it's produced by the body on purpose to protect it, and it is part of that stress response. I will go on to say that it is also one that has a positive feedback loop. And I know that's really scientific, so I'll break it down. What it means is that once you have inflammation, the body will continue to produce it unless you make a major change. Okay, so if you continue to eat the same things and you have that inflammatory response, it's going to like double, triple, and heighten, and it can become really unmanageable for people.
What do you feel like in today's age most inflammation is stemming from?
I would say it's chemical. I would say a lot of it is like a chemical stress because we're so bogged down with. I mean, it's the shampoos, the conditioners, the body washes.
Food. Yep.
It's the things on our food, sprayed on our food. It's the paint on the walls. It's the finish on our, on the doors. And so it's everywhere. It's the cleaning chemicals. It's what's in our soaps. It's fragrance.
Man.
Yeah, it's overwhelming. And I know right now it's like we're talking about food dyes and it's a big buzzword and it's really important. But it's really just scratching the surface.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's it's important, but it's a small portion of
the problem.
A huge problem.
So I've loved your explanations on these things. I love how you've been able to make it simple for anyone to understand. But then I think the big question comes to how do we like heal or rewire ourselves? And I'm assuming chiropractic plays a part in that. So I want to hear about your practice and how your specific techniques are able to help that, as well as if you have any other tips outside of chiropractic.
It's a great question. I would say that when it comes to what we can do on our own, most of us know the strategies that we should be taking, right? We should be moving. We should be consuming water. We should be eating well, all these sorts of things. And we know that, okay? The strategy is there. So it's like, why aren't we doing it? Okay. And that's where the brain comes, plays a role. Okay. And that's where the chiropractic plays a role. Okay. It can be really, really easy to get bogged down by stress. And when you're in fight and flight mode, you are not thinking about anything but survival. So neurologically based chiropractic, what it allows us to do is like increase our capacity for stress. So it's called adaptability. And because modern world isn't going away, we have to bring our brains basically up to speed. And we have to almost like upgrade them, like a system upgrade, if you will. And so that's what neurologically based chiropractic does, is it's basically teaching the brain that, hey, we don't need to be running and hiding from these physical, emotional, chemical stressors. Instead, we actually need to be operating the opposite side of the nervous system, which is our healing repair side. That's where we detox. That's where we sleep. That's where we learn, grow, develop as children. So that's the side of the nervous system that we actually want turned on and operating more than that fight and flight mode. And most people have that fight and flight stuck on, and it's dominating their life. So the neurologically based care allows us to increase your ability to handle the stressors, because the stressors aren't going away.
So how does that work? Because I think a lot of people, when they think of chiropractic care, it's you lay on a table, you get
racked and cracked,
popped in a few spots, and your spine is getting realigned. So like, walk us through how does neurologically based chiropractic actually help with that? What's happening?
So we use a technique is called torque release technique. And what it does is a tool-based instrument or adjusting technique. And what that does is it literally, when it releases, it, kind of makes a little pop sound, if you will, and it's releasing a vibration that has a certain frequency or certain wavelength, and that is literally communicating through the nerves, through the spinal cord to the brain. And so it's telling the brain, hey, calm down. Hey, we need to kind of reverse that fight and flight, turn up the healing and repair side. And that also then helps to rewire the brain in understanding how it should be handling X stressor.
Yeah. And so I assume it sometimes you kind of alluded to too, when we have stress in our lives, you go through that, you might have, your body will release that stress or that inflammation, right? And it builds and builds and builds. I assume that it's going to take a little while to let your system start healing and, realize that it's safe again. So I think that people should understand that it's not just a 1-time or 2-time thing to come to you and get adjusted.
Yeah, so consistency is important, especially when you consider how many stressors are coming at us on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So in order to truly rewire and kind of retrain the brain, it does take frequency, consistency to do that.
And if anybody is interested in learning more about the torque release technique, Dr. Felicia has written a blog on the Motherhood Alliance website. It's called Discover the Torque Release Technique in Chiropractic Care, a Neurologically Focused Approach. And so I know she has a lot of awesome information in there where you can learn more about that specific technique as well as learn more about her. Dr. Felicia is also offering our listeners $30 off an initial consult. So if somebody's interested in that, how can they redeem that? How do they contact you and how do they redeem?
If they just literally call the office and they let us know that they heard our podcast, it's actually not $30 off. It's $30 for the consult. So we
nice. That's a big difference.
We have a medical discount program that we use that allows us to bring costs down, similar to what somebody would pay as like a copay.
Awesome. That's so great. Thank you for offering that. We are super excited for 3 more additional episodes. Our second episode, we're going to kind of continue this conversation, but twist it a little bit more toward immune health, because a lot of people often wonder, what makes us sick? Why are we so sick all the time? Whether it's colds and short-term sickness, or why is there so much more cancer in the world today? These long-term chronic sicknesses. So we're going to be talking about immune health in episode number 2. In episode 3, we're going to be focusing in on pregnancy. There is stress and fear and anxiety oftentimes with that season of life, and you can find some natural relief through chiropractic as well as more. And then in episode 4, we're going to be talking about kiddos and focusing a lot on sensory processing and birth trauma and all the things related to helping our kiddos thrive. We can't wait for you guys to join us for the next one. If you enjoyed this episode, would you consider leaving a rating or review or sharing it directly with a friend who could benefit from the information? We know that you're a busy mom or caregiver, and our goal is to make your life easier by bringing tips and tricks directly from experts into your earbuds. By sharing this episode with someone you love, you can play a critical role in helping to make their life easier as well. We appreciate your time, and thank you for being a part of the Motherhood Alliance family.